and welcome to the next episode of the Powerless Podcast. In this episode, I talked to Kasey Karlsen, who is the vocalist of the band Deadlands out of New York. I talked to Kasey all about everything from her start and kind of getting a public platform, from doing covers and kind of blowing up on social media, to the formation of Deadlands. We also talk about a little bit of, one of the former guests of the show, Anthony Conti, who is in the band Resistor, how her and him kind of were part of getting this project together initially, and how the trajectory of it and everything in between. We do a lot of the time, we break down the band's newest EP, 7, which is out June 27th. So it should be out right around the time that this is released. Obviously, it talks about the 7 deadly sins, which of course are pride, greed, lust, envy, gluttony, wrath, and sloth. We go through each one of the songs, which are Villain, Die in Paradise, More, Limbo, Kundalini, Wither, and House of Cards. We break down kind of the references of each one and the correlating sin, talk about the inspiration behind them specifically, a little bit of social commentary, as well as mental health, as well as introspection and everything in between. Kasey is absolutely a prolific vocalist, as well as a great lyricist and songwriter, so it was absolutely ecstatic to have her on to break these things down with me. Make sure to definitely go check out Deadlands' newest EP. They also are going on tour in support of Scene Queen, and also doing a bunch of other shows as well that will all be in the show notes below, as well as on their website. So make sure to go check all that out, support the band, go listen and save this EP on whatever platform you use, or go buy merch, etc., and really promote this band. I think they've got the chops, and they've obviously already done a lot in kind of growing their following, but this band should be one of the biggest metalcore modern metal bands out there, in my view. So yeah, absolutely ecstatic that Kasey came on and did this with me. I hope everybody really enjoys the episode. Before we get into the episode, just as a reminder, you can find the podcast on all social media at thepowerlesspod. Email me at thepowerlesspod@gmail.com. You can find everything at thepowerlesspod.com as well. And yeah, so just make sure to follow me there if you want to be on the show. If you hear this and you are in a metal band, or you're a punk band, or singer-songwriter, I just recorded a great episode with Renee Christine, who's a singer-songwriter out of Pennsylvania. That'll be out the next episode after this, I believe. So yeah, there's just a lot of people I like to discuss things with, also producers, activists, journalists, everything in between. So yeah, reach out to me there, follow, go listen to the almost 100 episodes I have in the back catalog of artists from Silverstein to Silent Planet to more local bands like Career Day, which is also out of New York. That's an absolutely fantastic pop punk band, to Riverside Drive, which is another great pop punk band out of Canada, to, again, like I said, Resistor, Lost Becomes, which is another metal band out of Long Island. The list goes on and on. So definitely check out all those episodes, subscribe. You can buy merch on our merch store. That'll be at the website as well. Also, I'm in a band myself called Dead Inside, and the only reason I'm bringing that up is we are selling, got them on right here, I'll probably put up a picture up here. We're selling our shirts for our Riot Gear song, where all proceeds will be going to the National Immigration Justice Center right now to assist immigrants and migrants within the United States. So definitely make sure to go check that out if you'd like as well, and try to support for a good cause and help out people that are being dehumanized and otherized within our country. And I would just really appreciate if people check that out. And with all that covered, here is the episode with Kasey Karlsen of Deadlands, talking their new EP 7 on the Powerless Podcast. Thanks so much. All right, I'm here for the next episode of the Powerless Podcast with Kasey Karlsen, who is someone I've followed on social media for quite a bit of time, from your covers and things like that you've done, as well as your band Deadlands that we're going to talk about today. So as always, I said this before we hit record because I'm an amateur, but how are you doing today?
Dude, I am so good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I was really happy to send over your EP 7 before it comes out, which comes out on June 27th via Spine Farm Records for this project. It's your second EP overall, right? You put out one in 2022. This is your second one that you put out, and I was absolutely ecstatic about it. Obviously, you've had a lot of singles from it over the past couple of weeks and months. I think it was four out of the seven songs? My math is pretty bad, or counting, I guess I'm pretty bad with. But you put out 4 of the 7 songs of this, early on, or to kind of build up for the release. But all in all, I just want to say, like, before we get started, this EP is absolutely awesome. It's a big step up, I think, for you guys as far as like the releases have gone from your previous EP. And yeah, I'm just really happy to have you on. What I like to do here is kind of talk about like where music became a big thing for you, like in your life when you started writing music. Obviously, for you specifically, you've done a lot both through your own original music and doing like a lot for yourself for building up your public profile through social media with covers and kind of, what's trending and things of that nature, and like done a really fantastic job of that. So I'd like to dig into all of that, if you don't mind, when we get into this. First and foremost, what I like to do with people to kind of break the ice is, I guess I should have you introduce yourself first. I said, your name is Kasey Karlsen. Kind of introduce what you do in the band and where you're out of.
Absolutely. So my name is Kasey. I am 22 years old and I am the vocalist for Deadlands. And I also sing with Nita Strauss too sometimes. But we are based in Long Island, New York. We've probably been a band for, I don't know, maybe close to 4 years, a little over, a little under, I don't know. But we're just here and we're just happy to get some music cooking and out there, and I'm just so hyped for this next EP, man. It's so it's just been such a long time coming.
Yeah, and the concept of it, which we'll get into in just a little bit, is really cool to me too. I want to get into all of that before we kind of do a little bit of a track by track breakdown type deal. But first and foremost, what I like to do as an icebreaker for bands, especially someone like yourself that I've never spoken to before, is tell me what you've been listening to a lot lately. What's been your Spotify on repeat? Whether it's a band you played with, a local band, the biggest band in the world you want to shout out for an album, whatever the case may be. What have you been listening to a lot lately?
Oh, dude. I mean, the new Architects album has been like taken
Correct
over
answer.
in the
Correct
gym.
answer.
Love it,
Yes.
love it, love
Yeah.
it. The new Spirit Box album, completely taken over by that too. But as for like smaller bands, like the band Midwinter is so good, and I feel like more people really need to know them and just understand like they are changing the game when it comes to metalcore, and they're just so disgustingly brutal. It's so good. I love Midwinter. But also, I mean, I always tend to listen. I stick to my faves sometimes. Like I have Motionless in White always on repeat, Ice Nine Kills always on repeat. The Word Alive I've been listening to a ton lately, and I mean they're also like they're a pretty big band, but I still feel like they're so underrated just because they're
Mhm.
so good. And I recently just went up on stage with them and I was just like, dude, these guys are no joke. They're so polished, they're so sick. They look like they just have a blast on stage, and they were just so cool to be around. So cannot say enough good things about The Word Alive. And yeah, I'd say that about sums it up.
Yeah, I saw that you did 2012 with them, right? Like I
I
saw that
did.
video. That is so sick because that's like an OG. That's like I think that's from their first full length, right? Like um is that Deceiver, right? Like that's
I
off
think
of
so.
like.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that song has been in my head for I'm much older than you. I'm in my early 30s, and that yeah, I'm an old man here. But that song is one that like I go back to over and over again for like the certain breakdowns in it. You got to do the Levi parts, right? Isn't that
I
what you kind of got
did.
to do?
I did.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's another cool thing. You get to jump on and do like the Miss May I parts and everything else. Like that's such a cool thing to do as a fan that built up your own career now and gets to do these kinds of things. That's so sick.
It's so crazy.
See, I've said this a lot on this podcast when people kind of get those moments, but like you made it. You got to do this. You got to do a song from like I think that came out in like 2009, literally,
Yeah.
and you get to go do that. So I mean, you've got it in the bag. That's so sick. But yeah, like the Architects and Spirit Box records, them along with you, along with a lot of other bands I've talked to, and some other ones, that are that are veterans. It feels like the year of metalcore in a lot of ways. Like there's a lot
Oh,
of
yeah.
like the new Architects record. I felt like was like the perfect encapsulation of old and new from them. You know, like they had a little bit, like I've loved everything they've put out. I'm an apologist for every era of Architects personally. But this new record, you know, they've got like the Mick Gordon tones that you guys kind of have in your EP. You know, they've got some of the more classic sounds. They've got the kind of hard rock and new metal sounds that Architects been going with the last couple of records as well. And Spirit Box, you don't have to say anything else. Like that's like the best band. I think that's doing it, you know. Yeah, those are great picks. And it was you said Midwinter, right? Like that's
Midwinter.
yeah, that's a band that I've heard of. I feel like this is a classic thing everybody says. Heard of, have not checked
Never
out. So
heard their
that's a
stuff,
note.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a note for me to check out and get some homework right after this as well to check out that music as well. But thanks for going over that. But yeah, so I guess going from there, you've been someone that I've seen on social media a lot. That you're very prolific, not just in like your covers, but like you seem to know, you seem to like tap into what like the trends are in like a good way to promote your own music as well as just kind of like build your public profile. Was that something that just kind of came naturally to you? Did that just come from, you know, you said you're 22, kind of like growing up with like the kind of social media trends in the current age that we're in? Like where did that come from for you to kind of build this profile that you have now?
I mean, honestly, dude, it was a total accident. Like I didn't know that I was going to be like this sort of, I guess band artist influencer combo type thing. Like it was never meant to be that. And like since you've been following me for a while, I'm sure you know like I started with just covers and then
Uh-huh.
like made a band and then put the band on the platforms and everything, and I was doing live one takes for the band, but like I didn't think any of it was gonna work. And then I was like, this is right before we had like started promoting any sort of Deadland stuff. And I was like, well, what is something that I can promote my band with, but still get like the same kind of fans over there and have it still be different than what I normally do? And the live one takes were the thing that stuck out to me. I mean, like you don't really see bands doing like this or that or like any of those challenges. So I was just trying to bridge the gap between like, okay, like how can we maybe have influence on the live performance and then just get people to know that we have some music, and I thought that that was the best thing to do. And since then we've transitioned over so much to really perceiving ourselves as a, I don't want to say a real band because that's not the right word, but I guess from an outsider's perspective of like, this is what a band instead of a TikTok band looks like,
Yeah.
because we're trying to break out of that mold. And I think once this EP drops, people are really gonna be like, oh yeah, no, they're not a TikTok band. They are a real band. But also the stigma behind the term TikTok band makes me so mad. I'm just like, whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I think like, you know, you're always going to get elitists or old, you know, it always feels like a little bit of an old man yelling at
Yeah.
cloud type deal of
Yeah.
like, you know, no matter what the generation was. Like, you know, for me growing up, again, I'm going to sound like an old man compared to you here, but like, I remember like when bands were getting big through, you know, like MySpace or Instagram or things of that nature. And it's the same kind of thing. Like people were like, oh, that's not a real band. It's like My Chemical Romance got big because they put their music out for free on MySpace. It's the
Exactly.
same thing. So like that's good that you have like both that kind of, it's good to have a little bit of a chip on your shoulder. I think that helps, but also like to know that like what you've been doing is not in any way, shape, or form invalidated. Right. Like
Correct.
which is a good way to go about both of those things. So you know, I guess before we get into the EP, which I really want to get into the concept of it because I find it, I really love the topic of it and everything in between, especially from the press release I read and like diving into the record. For you to start off, like going as far back as you can, when did music kind of become like a big formative force for you, where it wasn't just like what your parents or somebody else, whoever was playing like passively with music? What bands first got you kind of really diving into music passionately and then like writing your own? Like where do they kind of come from for you?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, dude, and I say this all the time, like, I think that I was kind of destined to fall into the metal category because there were so many things happening in my life that, like, it pretty much was just like hitting me in the face multiple times. And every time I was just like, nope, like, just for some reason or another. But yeah, I feel like I had a similar upbringing to many people where their parents would listen to like rock and just like 3 Days Grace, Marilyn Manson, Godsmack is what my dad listened to. And then for like, I don't know, 7, 8 year period. I think from when I was in like first grade-ish to like, I don't know, I would say like the end of middle school, I just hated everything to do with like rock and metal besides the stuff that I already knew. And even just to backtrack a little bit, I loved Guitar Hero from a very young age. I would play it all the time. And I remember I had like a little pink MP3 that had Misery Business by Paramore on it and Girlfriend by Avril Lavigne. And I was like, I'm so hard. Like, I'm like the coolest person ever with this. Like, nobody can get on my level. They're all basic. Like, um, and so like I would play all that stuff. And then during that like it's 7 year, 8 year period, towards the tail end of that, my brother picked up guitar and started playing guitar. He started playing like Beatles and then Van Halen and then Avenged Sevenfold, and then it just like spiraled from there. And I think it was literally just exposure therapy because he would play his guitar all hours of the night, all the time. Like, I would literally be like, can you shut the hell up? Like, I'm trying to sleep. Like, I was so mean to him. I feel so bad. But like, he was going to the gym and just getting heavier stuff like put in his face and then showing it to me. And then I was also playing Call of Duty, and Call of Duty Black Ops 2
Mhm.
specifically is like
Yep.
my game. And so I heard Avenged Sevenfold in that game. I can't remember if it was Shepherd of Fire or Hail to the King. I always mix up which it was, but all I know is it was like one of those cinematic like idle videos that would play like if you just went idle from the game and then it would just like start a soundtrack and like a visualizer or whatever, and it was to Origins, and I was just like so mind blown. I was like, "Oh my god, this is so sick." Maybe it was from Out of the Dead actually. I Cuz I remember drawing the connection of like the dog on fire. I don't know if you've ever played Black Ops 2.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so you know what
That
I'm
was
talking
like the
about.
last one I played. But yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
I'm familiar. Yeah,
So like the hellhound through the wall, I was like, Shepherd of Fire, whoa.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I just remember that like being like, oh my god, that's so sick. And so I loved Avenged Sevenfold. I still love Avenged Sevenfold, and I happened to meet Johnny Christ and he was like, you're really good. I was like,
So sick.
yeah, I was so floored. And so cascading, my brother was showing me Asking Alexandria, Attila, and I had one of my other friends show me Crown of the Empire. And Crown of the Empire, I just instantly fell in love with them, especially just because I love like the theatrical kind of
Yeah,
metalcore. Like, I used to be so super into that. I feel like I've dialed back a little bit now, like besides Ice Nine Kills, but like it still holds a special place in my heart. And so when
mhm.
I was listening to Crown the Empire, I was like, oh my god, like I want to go see them in concert so bad. And they happened to come around, and I live in New York, so most shows will come around. But like I was like, my god, like check out these other bands, like Light Up the Sky, Too
Yeah.
Close to Touch.
Whoa.
First of all, like a first show having Too Close to Touch, I was spoiled. For like rest in peace. Oh my god, insane.
Yeah, such a good band, such an underrated
Yeah,
band. Yes, yes.
exactly. But Light Up the Sky, Too Close to Touch was New Year's Day, Bless the Fall, and Crown the Empire. I was literally like a kid in a candy store, dude.
Yeah.
I just remember being the only one in the pit for some of the Crown songs, and like I was just having the best time. I wasn't even like touching anybody. I was just dancing, and everybody was just watching me, probably be like, "What is this girl doing?" But I was just vibing, and I just my life changed in that moment, and it's like an unforgettable experience for sure.
That's a band like, like you said, like there's a lot of bands I've like come in and out of like really being huge fans of, right? Crown the Empire is definitely one of them, not to hate on any of the future music they put out, but I remember like I was playing in bands. I played with Too Close to Touch like early. That's how old I am. Like I played at like a fucking, I think like a church basement, I think, or something like
Wow.
that, in like 2010 or something like that. But I remember when the Fallout came out in 2012 and or 2012, I don't know how to talk, and I remember hearing the title track and also Makeshift Chemistry from that, and being like, they were sort of the precursor to like what Ice Nine Kills and a lot of those other bands ended up doing, of like that theatrical, almost like circus
Oh
tones like
yeah.
in the background programming, that kind of thing.
Oh
And like
yeah.
there was something to that where they were like, it was like there was a lot of other music that was doing that. There's like prog metal that would kind of do that. There was a lot of other sort of like more out there genres, but like when they pulled that in and a few other bands did in that era, like it really kind of spoke to, I think, a lot of people where like, I don't know, it was like fun. It was like adding a fun energy to this genre that was usually like a lot of breakdowns and angst and,
Yeah.
whatever the case may be. And it
And it
put like
turned
some,
into like cynical almost.
yeah, and it was there's something about it that like brought you in, and like I have that record on CD still somewhere from like a show that I went to way back in the day. But yeah, like all those bands can really, I could see how that could pull you in as like a young kid, really show you something completely new, and then like here you are, right?
Yeah.
So I guess like going from that, kind of getting into all these bands, making like the mosh pit of one for yourself as you're talking about a show and all these different things. Where does that go from for you? Because you're not like, I wouldn't say that any person I've had on here hasn't had like great talent in their music, but like you are someone that like is very dynamic with your vocals, very all over the place with, in a good way, of like what you can deliver, from like some of the most brutal screams to very soaring vocals. Like, you're not an amateur at this. So I guess like where did that kind of come from for you, from like hearing this kind of music, getting into the scene, and then like kind of wanting to create your own music and your own writing?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, thank you. That was a hell of a compliment. So thank you very much. But I don't know why, but I just always loved the mix of the two, the mix between clean and extreme. Like, as much as I love deathcore and stuff, don't get me wrong, but I feel like the dynamic that it brings it just brings like a whole new element. And I was also born and raised in pop music. I love pop music. Billie Eilish is one of my favorite artists, and I'm going to see her in concert. Thank God. I'm so excited. Shout out Jessica Conrad for hooking me up with her pre-sale code. I
Oh
love
yeah.
her for that. But like I love Demi Lovato. I was obsessed with Selena Gomez. I was like an Ariana Grande stan to the point where like I had like the Dangerous Woman crew neck that I made myself. And like I was her for Halloween one year. I had the cat ears and like the tall boots. And I had my Ariana Grande impression down pat. Like it was scary.
Incredible.
Horrible. But like then mixing that with like just the screams and the angst, like Crown the Empire did such a great job of incorporating like the pop-esque type sounds
Yeah,
with the
definitely.
theatrical and the horror aspects that I always loved. I was always a horror buff. And then just the heavy music because it just had so much dynamic. And I think that's really what did it for me.
Yeah, it really kind of pulled you into like, I don't want to just hear this and like jam out to it and go to a show with it. I want to like create my own versions of it, right? So like, was were you in bands prior to doing kind of like what you were doing with covers and creating with Deadlands? Was that kind of your first real foray into this? Like, where did that
Yeah.
kind of come from for you?
So I used to cry because I wanted to be in a band so bad. Like I just remember my heart hurting and I was just like, dude, like I just want this like terribly. I know this would be like the sickest thing ever. And so I got into my first band because our friend, he's still our friend to this day. His name is Anthony Conti. He comes on tour with us when he can
Been
sometimes.
on the show before. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
has
yeah, yeah. Yes, he has. Yeah, for Resistor.
my
Yeah,
God,
yeah.
I literally love Conti so much. Like we all do. He is the best, and I have nothing bad
Such a
to
fun
say about
guy.
him.
Yeah,
Oh, he's
yeah.
the best. And so he actually found me on Flint. Have you ever heard of Flint?
That sounds familiar, but yeah, is that like, what is that for
Okay.
listeners that might not know?
So it's essentially like it's not a dating site, but it's Tinder for bandmates. So like you're
Okay, kind of
essentially
like
like
band mix or something like that. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. So you're just trying to find band members on there. And it was like this random app that I found. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to go on this. So I went on this. I deleted it probably after a month because I was like, there's nothing going on here. And anybody that I found on there like was not metal. They were just like rock and stuff or like
Yeah,
folk
yeah.
or what. And I was just like, this is not what I want. So I deleted it. And then I get a DM from Conti and he's like, hey, like, my name's Conti. Like, I saw your stuff on Flint. Like, I was wondering if you'd want to like jam with my band over the weekend. And I was like, Dude, fuck yeah. Sorry if I can't curse. Like, is it
You
can I?
can curse. You can curse.
Okay,
You can
good,
curse.
good.
Yeah, yeah.
But I was just like, fuck yeah, dude, let's go. An opportunity. I was a little afraid, but I was so excited, especially when we were like pulling out the playlist. We had some Of Mice and Men in there. We had some Wage War in there, some Paramore. I was like, dude, this is fucking nuts. So we get there, we run through the songs. I'm like, y'all can't get rid of me. I'm not going anywhere. My bad. But we made a band, and that band, I had signed up for a pop punk band. I'm sorry, I signed up for a metal band, but it turned out to be a pop punk band. Like, something happened where it just like dissipated, and we were like, yeah, man, like we just can't be in this band anymore. And so it was me, CJ, and Conti that made Deadlands with Kyle, and then it just like evolved from there. And so this is like my first real shot at like being in a band, and the fact that it's been such a crazy ride. Like, we've already played festivals and the band is less than 5 years old. Like, that is so mind-boggling to me, and mind-boggling to CJ too. It's like mind-blowing.
Yeah, and it's cool that because I know like at least officially it's you and CJ as like the duo of the band, but it's cool to see like that's where I kind of like I had heard of your band and obviously followed you a bit when you put out your first song back in 2022. I think it was Crush, right?
Yep.
And like how the algorithms go, things show up for you, then they don't show up for you, and all that kind of stuff. And then I saw after I had done an episode with Conti for Resistor, which is an absolutely fantastic band that people should check out.
Oh yeah.
I saw him playing bass for you guys, and I was like, wait, I follow her. Like, what is this? And then I looked through, and it's like, god damn, this band's like playing these huge shows. The production's sick on the songs. The songwriting's like exactly what I would want from a modern metal band, and it was really cool to see. So that's super fun. Like, that's super crazy in a way that it's like your first. I mean, again, had iterations of a band, but your first like full-fledged band, and you're doing like these massive shows, and you still get to do it with one of a couple of the guys that you kind of got going with in the first place, which is a really cool thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Oh yeah.
it's not just like finding some random people to play with you. It's people that you have a personal connection with, which probably makes the shows a lot more fun and personal, right?
100%. Like, we have Andrew Gaudio who's drumming for us now, and he's been my boyfriend for 2 years now, and he is absolutely incredible. And I'll tell you what, man, like, he has absolutely earned his stripes in this band. Like, he has done more work than like he's done just as much work as me and CJ for this band, even without even being like a full-fledged member. It's crazy. And like, the fact that, he and CJ are like best friends. They love each other. The romance is wonderful. But, like, obviously, me being his girlfriend, having my boyfriend on stage is, like, a super sick thing, and I was so nervous to begin with to do that, which is, of course, like, one of the reasons why it took so long for him to get on stage with us. But also, he's a sick-ass front of house guy, so, like, we were like, "Oh, do we wanna, like, take him away from front of house where he's so good?" And, like, it's just so difficult. But just to have, my best friend CJ and my boyfriend and slash also best friend on stage, and then Conti, another best friend. Like, it's just the sickest thing ever, and we wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah, that's awesome, and such like a cool kind of like origin story in a lot of ways for it, right? Um, I do, I guess, like while we're like diving into it here, we can get into you put out your last EP that you had done. You had your singles that you had Crushed and Shallow Breath before your EP Sentence of Myself came out in 2022. Really good EP. Like, I'm not what I'm about to say does not dissuade that EP in any way, but when I listen to Seven, which is the EP comes out again on the 27th of June, when that'll be out, it'll be out when this comes out. I was blown away at like first of all, like the production, songwriting, everything else is like, we were talking about Architects and Spirit Box earlier. I don't think, like, if somebody was listening on Spotify, say as an example, you wouldn't hear a production lapse between those and this, which is like a big up. Like, first and foremost, when people are finding you, it's no joke that like, people's brains are so fickle now. You know, you hear a song on Spotify for the first time on like a Discover playlist or something, and like if you don't like it in the first 30 seconds, a lot of people move on to the next thing. And this will not be that for a lot of people, right? Like the production's there, the songwriting's there, your guys' chops are there. But I guess like to dive into this a little bit, I was reading through, obviously when I was listening through this, ahead of time, reading through the kind of your breakdown of this, and this is basically a concept EP. You know, it's not a hard concept in some ways, right? That it's like a storyline, but you've got the 7-song EP, and it, at least from what I could read from here, that it seems like it's about the 7 deadly sins, right? So
Correct.
where, as someone that like I both grew up like reading a lot about that stuff from like a religious aspect, but also Seven's one of like my favorite movies. I'm a big horror and thriller buff and all that kind of stuff.
Such a good
Where
movie.
yeah, it's one I go back to over and over again, even though a lot of people tell me it's crazy to watch the movie multiple times. I do. Where did the concept for this EP come from specifically? Because I mean, it's cohesive. Each song's individually on its own, like a good song, and everything in between. But where did that concept come from for you?
First, thanks so much. But also, I mean, I think I was just playing Fortnite one night and I just like it just dawned on me. Originally, the EP was going to be poker themed, and I have never played poker in my life. House of Cards has all of the poker terms in it. It's got like over 30 terms, and it's like it's really sick. But like thinking back now, we're like, how the hell was I gonna like write poker without even playing poker? It just didn't make sense to me. So one day I was like, like what are we gonna do? Like, I don't think poker is really a great idea. And then it dawned on me that like, oh my God, what if we do 7 Deadly Sins? I called up CJ and he was like, dude, that is the sickest thing that you have said. And I was like, all right, bet. So we're getting this down now. And so we just went back to the drawing board. And also the craziest thing about House of Cards is being that it wasn't supposed to be one of the original sins, it actually fits perfectly into the sin that it is. Like,
Yeah.
it like even with going down to like the colorways and also just like the symbolism and all of it is just crazy. So
You had the
I think it
idea
was
before you even knew you had the idea, right? Yeah.
exactly meant to be.
Yeah, well, like let's go ahead and get into this here before we get into the overall, kind of do like I like to do a track by track if you're willing to do that. I like to do a track
Absolutely.
by track, especially when it comes to lyrics. If you're the vocalist, you sing the
I'm
lyrics,
the
you probably
buff.
wrote. Yeah. So that's a fun thing to do. But you had a lot of really awesome collaborations on this record. You had everything. I want to get to the right spot here, but you had everything from Andrew Wade from Wage War, who has done things with Wage War and A Day to Remember. You've got people from Ice Nine Kills, which you've referenced numerous times. You've got Anthony Labaro, who is from Lost Becomes, who's been Lost Becomes. Anthony Capote was on this show as well, and The Pretty Wild, which you also have featured on the song. So you got a lot of like really really cool collaborators and also a great feature on this. So I guess like to overarchingly look at it, what was the kind of production angle for this? What was the kind of like actual putting together of the record, and then we can kind of dive into it like track by track.
Yeah. So, I mean, overall, we knew, first of all, this was our first record on a record label. So we knew like we didn't want to lock ourselves into one person and we wanted to be very experimental with what we were doing. And I think that made the EP even better than it could have been because of the fact that it's 7 different songs, 7 different sins, 7 different vibes. So being that we were so experimental, like we just tried to go at it of like, okay, what is this producer best at? Where do we think we can fit in a collaboration? And I mean, the Pretty Wild Girls alone and Andrew Wade, like they are so mind blowing just to work with because they're all so unbelievably talented. It's so crazy to think that we even had a collaboration. I'm just so grateful. And I mean, that process alone was just so insane and amazing and awesome. And they just killed it all in all. I mean, we wrote Kundalini within like 2 days and it was just awesome. And like every interaction that we had with each producer and each person that we worked with was just incredible. And like, I would say better than the next, but they were all just fantastic.
Yeah, you don't have to rank it when shit rocks, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's cool. Again, like, you were referencing some of these bands earlier, and again, you get to collaborate with various people that have been involved with them, as well as like actually having the Pretty Wild feature, which is like another band that just like exploded, primarily doing similar things that you've done, very good, just like social media presence and things of that nature, but also accompanying it with great music, right? I think that's the big difference, right? Whether you're sort of like a more, someone that's like kind of separated from social media and does things more like away from that, or someone that like takes it on full tilt like you have in a good way. Like what makes it is if you've got good songs, like you could post like 10,000 reels a day. If your music doesn't hold up to it, it's not going to matter, right?
Correct.
And both you and the Pretty Wild have both done that in a really cool way. So it was cool to see you all put out a song together and that fucking bangs, right? So to go from that a little bit, let's go into a track by track a little bit here. And what would be cool is if you tell people, as we go through each one of these songs, what the deadly sin is of it, and like kind of what the actual like what the influence and kind of inspiration for the lyrics, and also like musically, if there's anything you want to talk about as well, for each track, if that's cool.
Yeah.
So starting off with Villain, this is the shortest track on the record. Great like intro, great like starting off track, like guns blazing in a lot of ways with it. Tell people anything you can say in detail about the song with the lyrics, what the sin is that you talk about in it, and where the inspiration comes from for.
Absolutely. I mean, this one, Villain is pride. So this one definitely hit close to home for me because I am a very prideful person. I mean, we're going to therapy, we're working on it, but like, just ever since I was younger, like I was always like, like I'll show you, just in any sense. And I think even just being a female in a male dominated space, we tend to do that, and we tend to just stick our nose up and be like, well, I'll show you exactly what it means to eat your words. Essentially, like that's what Villain is about. Like Villain, just the EP as a whole is supposed to be playing on how these sins can be negative towards us as people and the negative impacts that they hold. So Villain is more so, you have the first verse, like, this is what I get, unjustifiable punishment. Like, this is what I get for putting myself out there on the line, however you interpret it. And like, you broke my wrist and scorched my skin. So like, I gave you my hand. I tried to like help you, or I just tried to be whoever I wanted to be. And then you literally just like set me on fire and broke my wrist, essentially. Ultimately, like, you're almost saying like, well, shame on me for like doing this. Like, it's my fault, I guess, even though you're the one that's causing all these problems. And like, this person just won't stop with whatever they're doing that's, taking away, like, if you could probably relate it to Instagram comments, even, because that's always like a big thing for me. I'm just like, I
I'm
hate
sure.
comments, they're so stupid. And so like, you won't let up till I'm in a coffin is one of the lyrics, like right before the first chorus, and just saying like, you won't stop until I'm dead. And like, guess
And
what,
even
like
then,
I could
right?
tango
Yeah,
too. Yeah.
yeah. No, I mean, that's very relatable, I think, for a lot of people. Yeah, just, I mean, whether it's social media or real life, just kind of this idea of pride. I think like from both angles of it, both like yourself, it can be self-deprecating, and also feeling it from others, like this unjustified pride of like their critique of you can be, like insanity inducing for a lot of people.
Exactly.
Like, and anyone I've talked to that's like had it, I've talked to some people, whether it's kind of in music stuff, or like in when I've talked to journalists and stuff like that on the show at times too, like it'll be the same thing. They'll put out like a really good piece, and like you just see like the worst of the worst people have the dumbest opinions possible, the most vitriolic thing, and yet you either got to see it or ignore it, because like their pride is inundating you, right? And
Exactly.
so yeah, it could be a big cyclical thing. So yeah, that's very relatable, and also like you could take it to a lot of points of being very individualistic, which is cool. That's the
Exactly.
mark of good songwriting.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one was like when I heard this one for the first time, and it hit the ground running, like with the record. Obviously you had put it out earlier, but when you listen to it in the context of the EP, it's like, yeah, this is like the correct spot for this one, because it's short, it builds up, it's got like some nasty parts to it as well, as far as like the heavy side of it, and it absolutely rips. So yeah, that's really cool. I guess I'm jumbling around a little bit here too, but like when we talk about, you talked about getting into the 7 deadly sins, and we referenced kind of like you were going to initially do a poker thing, and then you went to this. Was there anything that you like overarchingly like read about with this kind of stuff, or was it just kind of like looking up the seven deadly sins and like really writing songs that were related to you with those? Like, what was kind of the process there overarching with the concept of it?
Yeah, it was more so the latter because, like, to me, art and music itself, like, I feel like just for myself personally, and obviously other people can, do this without whatever. But for me personally, I feel like I have to be connected to it in some way, shape, or form. And so, like, for most of the songs, I looked inward. And if I couldn't look inward, that's when I would like pull sources of like, well, how do I feel when this is done to me? And then we went that route. And like in Villain, like I know what happens to me when I get super prideful and I become the villain, which essentially ties in that last chorus, right? And
Right.
that's why in the music video we had like the double me just looking at each other. We had evil me with like the
Yeah.
peacock dress and the feathers and everything. So it all just ties into that. And like, and I'll skip ahead a little bit, but like greed, like I don't feel like I'm a very greedy person. I try to be very giving when I can be, but what makes it so greedy just anywhere is the government. The government is always going to be the hand of greed. It's always going to be the hand that feeds that you bite back, and that's just one thing. And that it could relate to so many other things like materialism and all that stuff. But yeah.
Well, very cool. I like that. I like that you're taking it and like making those things kind of personally about yourself as you make like write this. That's got to be cathartic as well when you go forward with it, right?
For sure. I even said like when I mean this might be a topic to talk about later, but like the album cover art just itself, we have the 7 box, right? It's got the
Mhm.
number 7 on it. Essentially like pulling all these things out of myself, putting them into the cards, right? Because each card is its own sin, each tarot card, and then locking them away in this box is like symbolizing me just locking the ugliest parts away and not touching them. So I try to think of it like that at least.
Yeah, I love that. No, that's yeah, that art. I don't tend to talk about like album art on here for some reason. I guess like it's not something I think about overly like a lot, but like the album art is so connected to this in a cool way that I really loved it. It's fantastic. Going into the second song, "Die in Paradise," talk about what sin this was and kind of the background of it. Insights, everything in between.
Yeah, so Die in Paradise is greed for sure. And essentially this is the one that like is kind of about government, materialism. And I remember coming at it from just like, we had the title Die in Paradise, and I was just like, well, how can we make this like so dramatic? And I remember I envisioned it like there is diamonds in my eyes while I'm drowning in a pool of gold, and like all this stuff. And essentially like I was also getting a lot of inspiration from like, the influencers or whatever that take private jets everywhere. They have Louis Vuitton and Gucci and all the designer stuff, and no shame in that, but it's the matter of the overindulgence and just being like, well, guess what? I have something that you don't. And I think everybody can really get pissed off about it. One of the lyrics in there are, I have everything to exploit your heartbreak. So like essentially the problem with greed is like not that it's money or like fortune or whatever, but it's the fact of like I have something you don't, and that's what I'm exploiting, and it's just the matter of fact of rubbing it in your face. So this was kind of playing on the evil side of it and how it can really change you. In the bridge, something that I love to bring up is like, you have that down chorus where, it says that I'm blinded by diamonds, I'll die in paradise. But then it switches to 6 feet deep, incomplete, I'm never satisfied. So, like, even when you die in paradise, none of that matters because you are dead and there is nothing to your name except for how rich you were, not how good of a person you are. And I'll bring that up later. I'll bring up the other song. I was gonna relate it to another song, but I'll leave it
No,
for
you're you're
later.
you're you're good, but that's one for me. Like on the show, a lot of times I'm not gonna make you like dive more into detail on that, but like on the show, I'll bring on people specifically because I hear about their music being social commentary in some aspects. Because I always find that stuff interesting, right? Like because like growing up for me at least, or like a lot of people, I'm sure like we're all inundated with a lot of like relationship songs and things of that nature, and like that can all be good and relatable. But social commentary, I think, is like one of the cool things where, like, sort of like what you did in the song in a good way of like holding a mirror up to the world in some ways, right? And yeah, it's not about somebody doing well for themselves. It's not about somebody, like quote unquote making it and living a comfortable life. It's about like, yeah, that kind of like greed is like sort of that feeling of like trying to grab everything and still being empty, right? And that's what I got out of this one. It's something I think about a lot just on my own because I don't know, like my brain is fucked up and I think about these things too much. But like, it's something that like I related to a lot, probably more than one of the things I like thought about a lot when I listened to this record of like that kind of feeling that you portrayed in it of like not just having a lot, but trying to grab more and more and never being satisfied, right? Which is like the epitome of that deadly sin, which is like, and again, not to be redundant, but good fucking songwriting of the thing you're trying to portray, right?
Thank you.
Yeah. Absolutely love that one. Going from that one and going into the next song, More, which I think that one, like the song title is probably the most, this is the one that's like the most like obvious of what the sin that you're talking about would be, like more and more and more, right? But
Yep.
go ahead and speak to people what this one's about.
Oh yeah. So this one's about gluttony, and I think, of course it's so easy to be like, oh, like I can eat everything and blah blah blah. But I was like, I really don't like the idea of that because I feel like it excuses a lot of other negative things that can be gluttonous. And one of those being addiction.
Mhm.
And I think something that a lot of people don't talk about is just eating disorders in general. And so like I know I have been very close to both of these things, and they were both things that I was just like, I need to talk about this. And so essentially, like, more is obviously like just the overindulgence of, whether it's just taking, consuming, but to the point where it's destructive. And I think the epitome of the song really lies in the chorus where, you can do all these things to yourself, but like, are you happy with the person that you are when you go to sleep at night? Like the first lyrics in the chorus, if you take away the shame, could you face what's underneath? If I take away, all the bad things that I'm doing to myself or whatever, could I like face the person that I actually am beneath everything? And I think I had another lyric in there that I love so much, and it's escaping me right now. But if I think about it, I'll let you know.
Well, and again, it's another one that's almost like the different side of, like, because obviously gluttony is like a different thing than greed, but it's that kind of like filling that hole, right? Like a lot
Yeah.
of people, you talk about addiction, or you could talk about, you said eating disorders, or you could talk about a number of different, like hoarding things or whatever the case may be in a different mindset than greed. You're not talking about greed, but you're talking about trying to consume something to fill something about yourself, right? And
Exactly. I
and
feel
I,
like it's like the
yeah,
cycle, you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
one of the other lyrics in there, which is what I remembered, relapse, repeat, forevermore. I've rotten to my core because essentially this cycle is what is imploding on you, and it's just rotting you from your soul. Corrode your soul for something selfishly indulged is also another lyric in there that really like points to that. And yeah, so I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah, it reminds me of to talk about the, have you've seen the movie Seven, right? Like have you seen that movie before? You said
Yeah.
you're like a horror like you could take what happened. I'm not going to say it for people that are like squeamish of
Don't spoil.
yeah, not even just spoiling, but like don't, for people that are squeamish, but like like what happens in that one for gluttony is about as like out there as it could be, but like that's sort of taking that like an analogy is like really poignant, I think, for anything people consume in overabundance, because like it's not only just like rotten to the core, it's also not working on yourself because you're consuming something else to distract yourself from reality in some ways,
Absolutely.
right? Like, which you
Absolutely.
talked about materialism and all that kind of stuff that can all be kind of wrapped up into that one as well. So
Yeah.
but yeah, no, it's absolutely great. And like what this one, so like I should have said this earlier, but more, I think it was More, Wither, and House of Cards. There were the three that, like, when I was listening through this, I was like, oh no, that one's my favorite. Oh no, that one's my favorite. Oh no, that one's my favorite, which means it's a good EP. But this one, I think it was because like that kind of mindset is like really intriguing to me. That idea of like distractions and consumption to distract you from working on yourself or what's really important and things of that nature. Like I think this one, like with the gluttony aspect, was like a really good, relatable message within it. And also the song rips, which is the most,
Thank
which
you.
is, at the end of the day, if you write great lyrics but the song isn't like hitting, like no one's gonna look up the lyrics, right? Like so like the
Exactly.
song
Yeah.
is also absolutely like anthemic and also heavy as hell at certain moments when it needs to be. I know going to track 4, you got Limbo, which was the last single you put out, right? Before, like the most recent single you put out before the CP will come out in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
This one I thought was really interesting. You came to it at an angle that I think a lot of people don't in music, like kind of from a different side of things. You kind of alluded to that in the press release you did too, but kind of speak to people about this one and kind of where the inspiration came from.
Oh, yeah. So this one is Lust. And just to like start off, I'm really not a very sexual person. I never have been. Like, it's just, you know, great on everybody else. It's just not me. It's not me personally. So I didn't want to come at it from the lens of like the sex and romanticizing of this, because essentially we're talking about the sins here. We're not talking about just like sex in general.
Right.
And so the sin of lust is just essentially like hurting people or even yourself with just the sin of it. And so we came at it from more of an angle of like this girl who is in love with this dude that doesn't feel the same way. He is lusting after her while she is in love with him. And then in the music video, like the girl turns into a vampire and then eats him, so there's her getting her revenge, but also like, that's just the destructive nature of lust. Is like, not only if you hurt somebody, they can hurt you right back. So like, you better watch your ass, first of all. But like, also just in the sense of like, why would you want to hurt somebody like that? Like you are just being blissfully ignorant over here, partying with all your people, while like this girl over here who actually cares about you is deteriorating while you just do not give a shit. And I think that was the angle that a lot of people were surprised that we went that way, but I feel like I can't imagine the song any other way.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good way to go at it. I think one, it's unfortunately relatable for a lot of. I'm going to say the word relatable way too much here, but it's relatable in the sense of like that's been a lot of people's experience, with this sin or this, I don't know, instinct, whatever you want to call it. That like it's ultimately, at least in our society, a lot of times like destructive, right?
Yeah.
Like it's
It's so
because
normalized too.
yeah, and normalized as well, because it's basically it's purely like this like selfish innate thing that like if you let it consume you, you're definitely not worrying about the other person's state of being or whatever the case may be. It's like one of the ones that, like, at least when I've gone through this, or like when you look at it from like say the movie I've brought up, or the biblical references of it or whatever, it's like one of the most like primal things that seems
Yeah.
more like
Like instinctual, like you were saying, yeah.
yeah, primal and instinctual in a way that like is something that people have to reflect on, especially I would say like in the kind of culture you're alluding to there, like also in the music video and things of that nature. Yeah, I was when I was looking through the descriptions you gave, as well as the song itself and the release of it, like I thought it was an interesting way to go about it, because you're right, because like people will even kind of have a somewhat similar critique you have, but like still do it in a way of talking about sex and talking about this kind of stuff. And approaching it from kind of a different angle of that, I thought was like a cool approach to it that sets it apart a little bit. You know what I mean?
Thank you, man. Yeah. That was the purpose, and I'm glad that you're picking up on it.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, the next one, I've read a lot in print, and I need you to like tell me how to pronounce this one correctly. So first and foremost, track 5, which features the Pretty Wild. Their part is like very prevalent in it, really cool. You kind of have this kind of hip hop element in a way to it that they're like really well known for. But I'll stop bearing the lead here. Just kind of talk about track 5. First of all, how to say this word, and also like the thought behind it.
Yeah. So this is called Kundalini, and
Okay, I would have gotten that wrong. I'm glad I had you say it. Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely an interesting word. And Jill from the Pretty Wild is the one that actually picked out the name for the song. And the craziest part is just the girls in general, they're very spiritual, and all their songs are very spiritual, and just like their whole spiritual journey. I think it is the coolest fucking thing ever. Like, just everything that they're doing is so, so insane. And so this collaboration started. I basically found them on TikTok with them teasing their song Black Ops. And I was like, my God, like I was instantly in love. I showed everybody, we were on tour, so I showed everybody in the van and they were just like, dude, what the hell? Like, where did these two blonde girls come from? Like, what's going on? And then I hit him up on Instagram. I was like, "Yo, we got to do something." And they were like, "Yeah, write a song." I was like, "Oh, bet." So we got to brainstorming and everything. And I was thinking, I was like, should we have them as Lust? I don't know if that's a good idea. Like, but then we were like, Envy. We're three girls. Like, this is something that's just so, we wanted to really laugh at the girls who like talk the talk but don't walk the walk, the girls who are like, "Oh, I'm a girl's girl." They're really just not. Like,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
to put it bluntly, and like, there's so many of those people, not even just talking about in the metal industry. And just to say it, the Pretty Wild Girls are not that. They are absolutely fucking amazing.
Awesome.
But like when we were writing, we were just trying to find like the blends between, the spiritual side of things and the deadly sin side of things. So Kundalini, the title of the track, actually means like divine serpent energy.
Awesome.
Jill can, yeah, Jill can absolutely explain it better. But from what I understand, it's essentially like the vibes of a snake, as in like very sneaky, very sly, like very I don't even know the word, but you know how they like go like that?
Yeah, like
Like a
the
very
the
quick.
yeah. Quick viper move. I don't know what the fucking word
Exactly.
is. Yeah,
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 yeah.
you know what I
Yeah, yeah,
mean.
yeah, yeah.
Lurch, whatever, you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But essentially, like, the snake is like symbolic of jealousy and toxicity. And we just tried to capture that. And it just made sense for envy. It's a very envious energy. Um, and of course, like the green eyes swallowed me whole. Green is the color of envy.
Yep.
But also, like, we were just kind of like writing about how I guess we personified the snake a little bit, or made it feel like we were just in the snake's grasp, and we're hypnotized by it, we're entangled by it, like we can't escape this mindset. And so, like, we're also trying to talk about destroying your ego, because essentially
Mhm.
when you're jealous, your ego is at zero. Like, you have
Right.
no self-esteem. And so, like, that's why we have the line, "My ego decomposed down to the bones exposed." Like, that is just the epitome of it. And one cool thing that I absolutely fucking love about this song, and I remember we were having such a hard time fitting it in, or at least I was like trying so hard to think of like, how can we fit this in? But Jill wrote this line, "draining prana power for the masquerade," which I think is so insanely cool, especially when you understand what prana means. So prana is life force. And so,
Okay.
like, when you're jealous, like, you're draining yourself and this person, and you're just like essentially feeding off of what they're doing, just to fill yourself, and just to fill this mask of you being like, "Yeah, I love you," but behind the back you're just stabbing them. So I think that's like the coolest lyric, one of the coolest lyrics on the album, honestly, and I love it. And they're just the fucking shit. I mean, the rap itself is just so cool.
Adds
And
so much to the whole EP as well.
yeah,
Like it's kind of like this
dynamic.
different. Yeah, yeah. It's like this different flavor of something that like it doesn't feel out of place either, which is cool. That it could totally like you could totally try to throw something like that in there, and you're like, this is way out of left field or something, but it's not. It's very cohesive to the song and to the record. So when you did this feature with they did this feature with you, did you guys get to like meet up together and do it in person to do this? Is that
We
how it went?
did. We did. So we went down to Florida, and we went
Sick.
to Andrew Wade's studio, and we wrote the song in 2 days. Like, we were in the studio from like, I don't know, 10 to 6 or something like that, like for 2 nights, and it was done. Like, we had
Wow.
it structurally, lyrically, melodically laid out, which of course is like the things that we needed to get. I tracked only like the cleans, I think, in Andrew's studio, and the rest, like, they handled the rest while we were gone. It was just fantastic. Like, I absolutely love the process. I love how fast it came out, and just, I wouldn't change any part of the song. It's one of my favorite songs off the whole record, just from the experience alone. It was stellar.
Well, yeah, I mean, it sounds like it was a well-oiled machine in the best way for that one. So that's really, really cool. And yeah, like it's cool that like those kind of spiritual references are thrown in there that maybe a lot of people won't catch, but if you like look it up, if you're someone that's like more like invested in that kind of stuff, like you'll get it. And that's like cool little nuggets for people that can really like dive into it too, which is
Exactly.
fun, you know. Awesome. Well, let's go into the sixth song, "Wither," which again, this one is absolutely fantastic. I think it was also. I wanted to say, I think it was Kundalini. That's how you
Yeah.
say it, right? Did
Yep.
I say it correct?
Yep.
That's the one that starts off with the more like sort of like clean, intricate guitar part, right? Or is
Yeah.
that? Or is,
Yeah.
yeah,
The
yeah,
Polyphia vibes.
yeah. That was the one where I was like, they're bringing in a little bit of prog metal into this one. That's cool. And then it brought in like, then you ended up having like some rapping in it. You know, like it was full eclectic. It was awesome. Yeah, so that's kudos to your bandmate CJ as well, right? Like to add all that stuff in there as well, and it still feels really cohesive to the record. But yeah, getting into the sixth track, Wither, talk about which sin this one is and kind of the background on it.
So this one is Sloth, and I think this one is just the most crazy song on the record, especially being that there's no clean vocals or anything, and the fact that there is no structure, and that was done intentionally because Sloth is lazy. Sloth
Yeah.
is the sin of just, indifference, apathy, all that jazz. And so we were just like, what is like the laziest thing that we can do with this song? And I think the hookiest part of that song is like, drag your feet to my altar, pick your path, mouse or the viper. Like, are you going to be preyed upon by the world around you? Essentially, are you going to be the one that harnesses your power and um, just takes the world on? And so I also, let's see, pick a mouse or the viper. Oh, indifference seals your chamber, and failure grows and reaps the danger. So like indifference is the thing that, imagine you are trying to achieve your dreams. What are you going to do? You will do everything possible to do what you can for your dreams, right? Like this is calling out the people that literally do nothing, and they just sit there and they wait for everything to come to them, and essentially you're only hurting yourself unless somebody depends on you, granted. You because you'd never try without failure. And if failure is going to be part of your journey, you might as well try doing it, because failure is not necessarily a bad thing, but it's when you take that failure to heart and you do nothing about it and you let it wallow in your soul is when it becomes the issue.
Yeah, no, again, it's kind of cool in these that a lot of times you're like coming at these sort of like seven deadly sins and you're kind of coming at them as a way of like showing people the real world implications of it as well. Like you're not just doing like sort of biblical references with it or whatever. Because that one I think that one would hit a lot of musicians pretty hard in the gut. I could probably check myself with that one. At times, where it's like you won't fail if you don't try type of thing. And
Exactly.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, this one also I appreciate. There was certain part. I think this was the one again. Like I've got my notes here, but sometimes as you're listening through a whole thing, especially I listen a lot in the car. Sometimes things bleed together. But some of the most brutal moments of this EP you end up showcasing in this one in like a really really awesome way that like feels wrathful, but in the middle of sloth, so to speak. So I like that you were really able to showcase a little bit more of your kind of harsher vocals in this one that I know you obviously have a lot of experience with, but it was cool to like showcase that in this one as well.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, like, I essentially like, this is the song that's like, get the fuck up off your ass and do something with your life. So
Yeah.
I feel like I had to bring that rage to it. Because who the fuck else is gonna say that? I'm gonna be the one to fucking say it. So get the fuck up off your ass and do your shit, man.
Sloth, aka fuck apathy, right? Yeah, there
Exactly.
you go. Yeah.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, that leads us to the last track on the EP, which again was the first single you had for the record, House of Cards, which is the Wrath one, if I remember right. But go ahead and speak to this one again. This is the one that you wrote kind of prior to this whole idea, but it fit really well. Just kind of speak to the background of this one.
Thank you. Yeah. So this was totally accidental to wind up on the EP, but it just fits so well. And I was touching on it a little bit earlier before, but it was originally poker themed, and you can't write an album without knowing anything or
Yeah,
without
yeah.
knowing nothing about poker. And so like, you know, I remember we had the theming of like the red and black, and I was like, oh, that's super cool. And then the juxtaposition of the swamp witch in there where she's like super upset and crying in the water, or essentially sitting in a lake of her own tears, right? But like that is the true embodiment of rage. A lot of times rage is just the misdirection of emotions. And in the song, like you know that it's basically a call out to the people who have done this too, whether it be the character in the music video or myself, you know, as the writer. But like this was the fuck you to all the people that like, you know, have lied to me. And I, truth be told, like I was dating this dude and he was a compulsive and pathological liar, and like I had no idea who he was. And I also had a friend who was also a compulsive liar who I also like barely knew who she was. And so this was like the anthem for them where I was like, dude, like, you know, I finally got out, and you know, I just blew your house of cards over, man. Like it's over. And essentially like it just took me so long to get out of that dark space of like, well, you know, like they'll change, they'll get better. It's like, no, they never do. Like this is, you know, finally my feelings bubbling over. And it also like showcases how upset I was at the time too, just the chorus. And like I said, that's just like the epitome of wrath is also just a mix of other emotions within yourself. But also like the destructive nature of wrath is just it ruins relationships. So I mean, you could take that as you will, but yeah, I think it just fit into the EP so well, and we couldn't live without it.
Yeah, and I think it's a great ender as well. I think ending on that and also ending on that emotion that I think is most, maybe in some ways the most relatable and also the most destructive that a lot of people feel for things that you just alluded to in your own personal life. I think it was a good one to end on. This one, yeah, this one I went back to a little bit even before the actual, you know, I was sent over to the actual EP ahead of time. Just like it's one of those things that you could like just pull a lot out of it, you know. All these songs, I should say, like I always end up diving into lyrics, but I do want to say like all these songs when it comes to the musical aspect of it are really, really both dynamic, have a lot of things from sort of like, again, like that more modern metal that's like sort of like a mix of metalcore, like the Mick Gordon Doom soundtrack. You know, you guys have a lot of that really down-tuned elements, like sort of synth soundscapes, everything in between. That like for listeners that maybe haven't listened to Deadlands before, if you're into Spirit Box, if you're into Architects, if you're into you know, Motionless in White, Ice Nine Kills, like the theatrics and also the competent songwriting and dynamics, like this definitely has everything for you. But yeah, like all in all, this EP was really cool to dive into. One, because I always like to dive into that kind of like, you know, spiritual and also just emotional, you know, zeitgeist. I don't know if that's the right word. I'm gonna throw out a big word like I pretend I know what it means. But you know, like that kind of element of things that like I think ends up being like more of like a mirror to the world of like the plethora of human emotion. I think it's like a really cool way that you did this while also not having it be so concepty that nobody knows what the fuck is going on by track 3, right? So
Yeah.
so yeah, 7, the EP coming out again June 27th. It'll be out when this recording comes out. Absolutely fantastic EP. Great, like sophomore, I guess you'd call it, sophomore release for you guys. Just kind of like going forward from this, I know you've got a lot of tours lined up, or I mean a lot of shows coming up, like with your tours that you're doing and things of that nature. I really appreciate your time and going over all this, Kasey, and diving into the music. Just kind of plug what's coming next for the band, what's going on in the band for the band after or including the release, obviously for 2025, and we'll go from there.
Hell yeah, man. Well, I mean, obviously this is going to air after this 27th, but we do have a show in New York on the 25th for our record release party. But also, we're going to be opening for Scene Queen and Girly over the summer in July. In between some of those shows, we have some headliner dates with VIP, and we would love for people to pop out and see us at either one of those shows because it's going to be fucking nuts. There's a lot of songs you're playing for the first time, so it's gonna be really fun. And hopefully we can get some more tours and come out. And oh my god, I'm praying for Europe.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've got the poll. Somebody should be calling you about that pretty quick here. I
Thank
think
you.
for at least the fall. Yeah, if not coming into the early of next year. So yeah, I'll have all this in the notes. But yeah, you've got shows with Scene Queen, and who else is on that tour again with the support?
Girly.
Yeah. So Sing Queen and Girdle, you've got everything going from New York, Massachusetts, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Kentucky, Ohio, coming here in Chicago area, Oklahoma, New Mexico, doing a pretty big gambit of shows there to get a lot of new eyes on this, which is really cool. So again, Kasey, I really appreciate your time going over this new EP 7 for Deadlands. I've got just two last questions. You know the drill of what usually happens with these interviews. Plug where people can find the band, plug where people can support you, support what you're doing, both with the band and with your own profiles. And also, I always play a song at the very end. So the EP will obviously be out. You don't have to just pick the singles, but I let the guests pick a song that you'd want. Say nobody had heard of the band for the first time. What song you'd want from the EP to play for people for the first time to end this off?
Oh man, that's such a difficult question. Well, I guess I'll start with plugin. Deadlands. You can find Deadlands anywhere. Deadlands Band on most things. And then we also, if you want to support us, just buy merch, deadlandsmerchstore.com. Tour tickets at deadlandsband.com/tour. And then for myself personally, I am Kasey Karlsen. You can just find me everywhere at Kasey Karlsen. And then I have, a Patreon. I got a bunch of stuff in my link tree or whatever. You want to check it out. But as for the last song, oh my God, this is so hard. I mean, if you've never heard us before, I think I'm going to have to go with House of Cards.
I think it's a good one to go with. It certainly made an impact, made a splash when it first came out. So I think that's a good one to pick. So yeah, so again, all those links that Kasey just said will again be in the notes below on YouTube or on Spotify, wherever you're listening. We will play House of Cards off the new EP 7 from Deadlands on the Powerless Podcast. Kasey, again, thanks so much for doing this. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks so much, man. Pleasure to be here. Thank you.